Hey, y'all, what's up? It is Talk to Me with Eugene Williams Jr., and I always have some great guests. But today, this guest is also very special to me because of the work that he does in terms of the fields of athletics and in terms of working with young men, working with our young men. This man has been a mentor and a coach to many, many young people, pretty much all over the nation. And so let me tell you a little bit about him. Number one, we first met back around 2012, 2013, when he became the head coach of a school where I was the assistant principal. He was the head coach of Orange County High School. And we were kind of at a down time in our football program, and he came and brought us back to some respectability. He can take nothing and make it into something. This type of coach this guy is. But let me tell you about him. Number one, he played at the University of Delaware. He played 2 years of arena football. He coached at these places: West Georgia State, Fordham University, Trinity College, Old Dominion University. And these are just the places that I know where he coached. Coached at Orange County High School when I was with him. And most recently was coach of Archbishop McNamara High School, their solid football program, and a lot of great players. If you know anything about college football, a lot of great players come from Archbishop McNamara. This man, once again, a mentor, a coach, a role model, everything you want to be. Like all of us, he has his own different stories, and we've all been through stuff. But since I've known him, he's been nothing but a great influence on the young people he comes across. So what we're going to do, like we do always, is give him a Don Cornelius introduction. Put your hands together and give it all up for Coach Keita Malloy.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
What's up,
that.
Coach?
How we doing?
Trying to make it out here. You know what it is.
Yes, indeed.
Try to make it out here. Trying my hand at something different. And also, I want to add, we can't always account for, the decisions people make in life. You can clearly see Coach went one way and I went the other. But it's all still love anyway. That's what the relationship is about. It's love in spite of the different paths we take. But I want to get right into it, Coach. You've coached a lot of places.
Yes.
On a variety of levels. And you've had success at those places. So I want to find out, number one, in terms of coaching football, playing football, being involved with the sport on a variety of levels, what were your earliest or who were your earliest influences? What made you decide or who made you decide, young Keita, that football was the way I wanted to go?
My biggest role model and my biggest mentor, God rest his soul, was my dad. I grew up in Southeast DC. Clearly, if you know anything about Southeast DC back in the 80s, was not the easiest place to be. But my dad, Donald Malloy, and my mom, Elaine Malloy, were very diligent in making sure that me and my two older brothers, and it sounds cliche, but found another way, right? And sports was big in my household. I played baseball as a young man. I bowled, basketball, football. I was always active in something. My dad was a sports guy as well, so he would take me to his games. And, of course, you run around under your dad. You're looking like, wow, that's my hero. So I got two older brothers. I grew up with a lot of great young men in my neighborhood. We did a lot of street ball. So it was just constant for me. So I would start with my dad and him getting me started. And also, I wouldn't discount having two older brothers. So I got a chance to watch them play and learn what to do, what not to do, which is how I ended up at Bishop McNamara. Now, no knock on the DC public school system, but there were some struggles with recruiting and coaches and trying to get my brother into college, who was one hell of a baseball player. And I remember him going through that experience and him being kind of disappointed the way it was going. And I went to my parents and I said, I don't want to go to school in DC. I want to go to McNamara, which a lot of my neighbors went to. And my dad and mom, again, another thing you don't realize is how much sacrifice goes in because it's a tuition school, right? And I say we weren't underclass, we're middle class Black family in DC. My mom and dad worked very hard and they made that happen. So I went to McNamara, and that really opened my eyes. I went to Ballou for a year, went back to McNamara, had some troubles, and I went to Ballou. Right, as you say, we all do things. So, but I would say my dad. And then once I got to that point and got out of college, and I was done playing pro ball, Had a good friend, Brian Bassard, God rest his soul, who was a college coach at the time. And I was like, man, that sounds pretty cool to just be coaching all the time. So I wasn't playing anymore. And he kind of put me on and gave me some insight. And then I just ended up taking a part-time job as a coach at Lafayette College, where I coached in high school first. I'm sorry. I coached 6 years as an assistant in high school. James Simmons was one of my teammates, was the head coach at Mount Pleasant. He hired me on. Then I moved on to Dickinson High School for 3 years. After that, 3 years at Mount Pleasant, and then I was like, oh, college, right? And I'm thinking, oh, I could walk in. I was a pretty good player. I had been down these avenues of road. They would just hire me. Nobody would hire me. And they ended up, I ended up having to take that part-time job, making $4,000 a year, living in a closed down dorm.
Right. You know, the thing I like so much about everybody I've interviewed, and this story too, is everybody thinks that they see a person at a certain stage in their life, the things they've accomplished, and they say that could never be me because of what I'm struggling with or where I started out. And almost everybody I've talked to, including today, is telling me that they at one point weren't where they are now either. And they had to do what they had to do to get to where they wanted to be. So that's what I love so much about your particular story. And so when I hear about your earliest influences, when I hear about the places you started out coaching, I know that after you graduated from the University of Delaware, you played some arena football for a couple of years.
I did.
The times as a player in high school, the times as a arena football player, the times as a coach, the time out of all of those experiences, what have been 2 or 3 of your most memorable incidents that you remember in terms of shaping the Keita we see today, the Coach Malloy we see today?
Well, one in particular is really easy. Like I tell my players all the time, when I talk to players and parents, you always ask them, what do they want to do? And of course, the first question is they want to go to the NFL. And right. So every year I have a parent meeting, and I just kind of implemented in the meeting that you probably got a better chance of seeing Jesus Christ walk across that parking lot than you do going to the NFL. So the Messiah himself, you can go shake his hand. How you doing, Mr. Jesus? Right? Then you do go into the NFL. Right. And I wasn't saying it to discourage people, because people think, okay, well, you know, if people give you this kind of Cinderella fairy tale stories that I don't buy into. That is, oh, if you just work hard and you don't let anybody take, okay, that's only 1,300 players in the NFL. That's it. Only about 27,000 have played NFL football. That's it. And there's a reason. And there's several reasons, right? Right. And then always who's the most talented. But anyway, my story, when I first came out of the University of Delaware, I had a pretty good career. I was an all-league guy. I was one of 4 players in school history to play both ways. Played in big games, playoff games, Marshall University, right? Of course, like anybody else, I thought I was a really good player. And when I went to these trials, I would go to these trials. They had these regional trials and combines and things, right? And a couple things with this, they were kind of tie in together. One of the scouts pulled me aside after I had ran my 40. I was only about 155 pounds, 5'9", and I ran 4'6" something, right? And I was coming back, and the scout pulled me aside, and he looked at me and he said, at your size and your speed, you'll never play professional football. And I was just like,
cold.
I was crushed, right? But I didn't let him notice it. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Like that. But it did resonate with me that I didn't run track. I wasn't a track guy. I played baseball in the spring, and that's just what I did. And a lot of athletes at that time ran track. I wasn't a track guy, so I didn't know how to run, although I was a very successful athlete. So I go back to the University of Delaware, and I took it upon myself. I go over to the Bob Hanna, who is the head track coach at the University of Delaware, and I walk in and I knock on his door and I say, hey, coach, if you don't mind, could you train me? Could you teach me how to run? I wasn't on the track team. He looked at me, he said, no problem. So I went and I trained. So I go back months later, a year later, whatever, and I run 4.47. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, okay. Got the time down. All right. So I go to this trial, and the trial, it's about one of my coaches, my head coach, Tubby Raymond. I don't want to be too long winded, but you got to hear the whole
Talk to me.
story.
That's what the show's called. Talk to me, man.
Tubby Raymond, I asked him, about trying out for pros, and I worked out for the Cleveland Browns. I had a great friend, Tim Jacobs, who played in the NFL. The Browns ended up signing, and I asked could I work out for them. They didn't take me to Broncos, right? So one of my other coaches, Greg Curry, said, "Hey, there's a trial of this arena team in Massachusetts, and it's on this date. So I get the dates. I drive up to Massachusetts, right? All my gear, go out there, and I get there, and it's about 600 players there. And we do the whole routine. We do the 40s. We do the broad jump, the vertical. We do the one-on-one, right? We go through that whole workout. We're there hours and hours, right? And at the end of the workout, they call you up. You got a number, right? And they just tell you your number, boom, boom, boom. All right, you've been invited back. You've been invited back. You right? You go down. Boom. Okay. So I get invited back. So of that 600 people, they invited back maybe probably about 300 or 400 of us. They cut everybody else. And then they said, you have to come back next week. So I drive back to Delaware. It's about an 8-hour drive. I drive back to Delaware, drive back up the next weekend. I get there. I'm like, oh, okay, 300 or 400. We done narrowed it down. Right? I walk in. There's the 300 or 400 people from last week, and there's about 200 new people there. So we're back up to about 600-700 people, players, right? And we go through the deal again. And at the end of that trial, it wasn't the trial, end of that workout, same thing. They call you up and they call you in the office, and right. And I walk in, and the head coach at that time was Don Strock. Don Strock, the quarterback of the Miami Dolphins. He was my head coach.
Back to Bob Reese. I remember that.
Bob Reese. Yes, he was the head coach, and Bruce Hardy, who played tight end, was one of the coaches. So I was a Dolphins fan. So I walk in the office, and I sit down, and he says, "We want to invite you to camp." So I look at him. I said, "Do I got to pay for it?" I was like, "Where's camp?" He's like, "It's in Scottsdale, I'm like this. I'm a college student, recent grad. I ain't got no money. So they started laughing like, this kid don't know nothing about this, right? He's like, "No, you don't have to pay for it. Our people will get in touch with you. They'll send you all the flight information, right? They'll get you all set up." I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I'd love to come to camp, right?" And what I found out later was of that 600 or 700 people plus the people before, right? They only signed 3 of us.
That was a cattle call. That was like, that was a shot in the dark.
Yeah, but I was one of the 3 of 700,000 players, right?
All right.
And so I get invited to the camp, the actual camp now. So I go to camp, and we have camp in Scottsdale. And so, now I'm trying out for the team. I go through that whole routine, and I ended up playing pretty well in preseason. And like I said, these stories all tie, and they're kind of funny looking back on it. So we were staying in a nice resort in Scottsdale, Arizona, and they had an outdoor pool, right? And I couldn't figure out why all the players I seen on rosters and things weren't in practice. Like I never seen them come to practice. But I thought that a bit strange. So anyway, they had what you call the Grim Reaper. The Reaper is basically on the NFL on every level, right? The Reaper is the person who comes to get you when you get cut. So they call him the Grim Reaper. So it's a beautiful Arizona day. It's 85 degrees. All the players, they're out there grilling, right? All the vets, if you will, they're right there. I'm sitting in my room, got the door, got the TV up, my feet up, right? And I had a roommate, and the door is open, right? And he, you reach in, he knock, and he's like, "Hey, coach, want to see you bring your playbook." So I done played pretty well. So I just sit there. I'm like, he ain't talking to me. He must be talking to you. So he like, "Coach, want to see you bring your playbook." So I'm looking at the TV. He like this, "Coach want to see you bring your playbook." I'm like, "You talking to me?" He's like, "Yeah, I am." So my heart just drops. I'm like, so I got to make this long walk, right? I come out the door and everybody's sitting around the pool. It is a terrible feeling, right? So I go down. They had an office set up. I walk in. Coach Strock is sitting there, and he could see on my face, and he kind of could tell I was just great. Like, so he looks at me. He goes, "Oh, no, we didn't cut you. We didn't cut you." So I'm like, he's like this, "We traded you." So So, so it's like 10 o'clock in the morning, right? It's like 10 o'clock in the morning. He's like, yes, your flight leaves at 1 o'clock. So I had to run back in the room, pack all my stuff up, and they traded me to Albany, New York, to the Albany Firebirds. So I go get on a plane, I fly out to Albany, I get to Albany. I'm there about a week. I play a preseason game, talking to one of the coaches, and he's like, we like you, you're doing great things. You get the stipend. He'd give me all like, so you're in, baby. Like, I'm like, cool. So we play a preseason game in Connecticut. I had my car in DC. So I said, after that game, I'm going to fly home, get my car, and bring it back up to Albany. So I had my car. So I go to DC. I go get my car, pack it all up. It's packed. I mean, the whole back seat's packed, trunk's packed, passenger seat's packed. And I drive up the Jersey Turnpike, and it's about a 9-hour drive. So I get there. I get in the house about 3:30 in the morning. I know I got practice the next day. So I was like, let me get into bed, right? And my phone rings about 6 o'clock. And he's like, Keita. I was like, hey. He's like, Coach K. I'm like, what's up, Coach? He's like, I need to come by. I need to talk to you. I was like, oh, okay. All right. So I go lay back down. He come by the house about 7:30 in the morning. I just got back. I hadn't even unpacked the car. He knocks on the door. He comes in, apartment. They give you an apartment. They take care of you. It was great. He walks in. He's like this. Yeah, I just want to let you know we released you today.
What? I can't imagine how anybody on any level deals with the whole idea of your fate, your future is tied to somebody's whim. And at any moment, you could be in this city, that city, or the other city. I would imagine that knowing that gives you a kind of resilience and hey, whatever happens, happens. I'm going to make the best out of it type attitude that most people can't seem to grasp at any stage in their life.
Yeah. So real quick, the caveat is, and to your point, like I said, I'm glad you brought me on the show. I appreciate you having me. The caveat about where you said what led me to some of the experiences and things was, okay, so I'm dead tired, right? So I got to drive back down to DC. I got released, but I'm in the car, right? So I'm tired. I get on the Jersey Turnpike. Right? I'm sleepy. I pull over on one of the rest stops, but it's nowhere to lay down. So I laid on the driver's seat and hung my feet out the window. Slept for about 2 hours, right? And I drive back to DC. But the point I'm making is when I talk to players and coaches and parents, and I call some parents agents, right? Because they think they're going to make it, right? Your child can't do any wrong, and they're the best player that ever graced the planet Earth, and right, all the idea. Listen, trying to play pro ball is one of the hardest things in the world to do because it's not always, again, about your talent level or whatever. And then when they released me because they had a guy in the CFL who got cut from the CFL and they wanted to bring him in. So they needed a spot. I'm a rookie. He went to a bigger school and they bring him in. My point being is that when I was a head football coach or any coach for that matter, I always tried to get the players to understand what adversity is and how do you deal with adversity. And as a young man at that time, 20-something years old, I didn't know how, but it taught me a lot about the business. It taught me a lot about understanding that, like you said, you can't put all your faith in and think, okay, anytime you think that you actually made it, that's the time that you're going to get blindsided the worst. So I tell my players all the time, I have no problem you trying to go to the league, but I'm gonna set you up to understand how all this process works. And even with all of that said, it is still a devastating experience, right? You can try to prepare them as much as you want, right? And you got to understand, bro, it is the hardest thing in the world to do. And I used to tie that into life. And that's with some of the catalysts of how I carried over some of the things into coaching that I personally dealt with. Okay.
Well, let me ask you this. We've talked about the player aspect of it, but I know you spent more years as a coach, as a leader of men, than you did as an actual player.
Right.
And so my question to you is this. Give me the biggest drawback of a career in coaching. Give me what you think is the biggest benefit of a career in coaching.
The biggest drawback, that same thing, the platform is not equal, especially for minorities. right?
Right.
There are probably four or five head minority coaches in Power Five conferences, right? And here's something else that people have to understand: the NFL, some of the biggest platforms and revenue and things like that. These aren't governed bodies, right? There's no DEI and there's no affirmative action, right? They don't have to hire you,
True.
right? So people get in, coaches and people get in the uproar. Like, they can do, NFL owners can do whatever they want. If they don't want a black coach, guess what?
You have to have one.
Yeah.
Right.
The government ain't stepping in. The government don't come in and say, hey, right. So they created the Rooney Rule to kind of patch everything up, right? You got to interview at least one, keep them happy, right? Yeah. The big drawback. So I had to make my bones. I had to earn it, as they say, even though I was far more experienced than some people. I've seen situations where I was passed over for a job one time for a high school guy who had been a high school coach. I had been a college coach on that staff for 3 years. And I was passed over for the job, and they made me his assistant. And
Yeah.
it was a clear experience differential where I was the more experienced guy. And again, this is not just toot horn. This is facts, right? So there are a lot of things that go on in the background that people don't understand. I have been in situations where you're sitting in a staff room like this. Wow, I can't believe he just said that. Or we're going to do what now? Why? Right?
Okay.
Or we're going to recruit. We're going to recruit who and why are we doing? Okay, but you have to learn to play the game. When you can go in and look at a young man or young woman and see them change and evolve, right? From things you like this, you wanted to wash your hands and you wanted to choke the lips, right? To see them become parents and community people, and on Father's Day or Christmas or Thanksgiving, or right, or 4 years later, 10 years later, your phone rings or your text message goes off, or Facebook, somebody sends you a 3-page paragraph talking about, Coach, you changed my life. That's when I tell you, emotional. And I'm not the emotion guy. Right? And like out of the blue, I've gotten messages over the years where people are like, Coach, you saved my life.
Yeah.
Right. I had a situation one time at McNamara. I had a young man who was in Southeast, and he quit the football team, and I knew he was troubled. Right. Southeast is a rough place, man. So he quit the football team, and usually when you quit, that's it. I don't bring you back. I don't want you back. Right. So the mom came to see me, and she walked in my office, and she said, Coach, I know you don't allow players to come back, and I want know if you would this time bring him back, right? And I think she thought I was going, because I can be very stern. I think she thought I was going to say no.
Right.
And I immediately said absolutely. And it wasn't because of me going back. I knew his situation. I don't want to come across as critical. Not enough coaches vested in the players and the lie.
Yeah.
And more everybody winning and money and bragging rights, right? So I said absolutely, he can come back, right? Under some stipulations, right? And I keep him under my thumb, but he would walk in and he'd come sit in my office, we talk, and so I brought him back, and everybody kept wondering why, right? He wasn't a good player, he didn't play a lot, right? And I didn't owe nobody no explanation why, because I knew why,
right?
Because I knew that if I could keep him close to me, he wouldn't be in the streets of Southeast.
That's right.
Right. I couldn't do everything. And the parts of that story that really breaks my heart. So when I was relieved from my duties at McNamara, I came back to Norfolk, and I got a call. That he had gotten killed.
Yeah.
And that broke me.
Yeah.
Because I felt like if I had been there, if I had been there, right? So the biggest part is the kids, is the players. Even, and it ain't all sad, bad stories or sad, but because I've had great kids who were great. I got a kid, Kenneth Womack, one of the best individuals I've ever been around. Right, this kid, he made me better. This kid was unbelievable, and his dad came from Southeast, right, and brought himself by the bootstraps and owns his own trucking company, right? And he raised an exceptional young man. This young man, right, during COVID, right, because I would teach the kids to give back. It was always about everybody else, right? Stop worrying about yourself. Okay. And he came to me one day. He said, Coach, he didn't tell me. He didn't even tell. He said, Coach, I just want to let you know I've done something right. And he said, what did you do, Kay? He said, well, COVID, I noticed some people going through things. So he went out and had the team, and they raised $2,000 that he wanted to present a check.
That's beautiful, man. That's beautiful.
Yeah, he wanted to present the check to the school. And I said, absolutely. You can get the jersey, something, amen. But that was the kind of kid he was. It was just, and like I said, when you see that and see that young man like that, and he goes on to play college football, he's at Western Michigan now, right? And them guys, they call you and they're like, man, Coach, everything you said, it's coming to fruition. Yeah, it's like, Coach, you told me, right? And you prepared me. Right? And so another quick story about Kenneth Womack. So I moved practice to 6:00 in the morning. Okay. So we practiced before school. And I knew it would be a gamble. Right. So Kenneth Womack calls me one day and he says, hey, Coach, and I didn't play about I am, being late to practice. Yeah, we don't play.
You don't have any of that. I remember those days.
Yeah. He called me and said, Coach, I'm probably going to be a little bit late to practice. Now, this is Kenneth Womack. I said, okay, but I was so confused. Right. I want everybody else, I usually snap off on.
Right.
Yeah, I was like this. So I'm like, okay. So I hang up right there. I'm like, why are you going to be late to practice? Kenneth Womack with right? So I get out there and he's already there. He's at practice on time. So I pull him aside. I said, come here, man. Why are you late? Why do you think you're going to be late to practice? He said, Coach, I had to go pick up one of my teammates.
Yeah. And that's when you knew that all the work he had put in, all the things you had invested in him had been worth it. Let me wrap with this, because we've talked about the playing career, we've talked about the coaching career, the impact you have, and the drawbacks and the benefits and all of that. I'm going to speak for you when I say this. As an educator who has worked with many coaches, I want everybody within the sound of my voice to know that this man I'm speaking to right now, I don't know if he still wants to even coach anymore. I don't know. Because we talk from time to time and, feelings change about what we want to do in life. But I can tell you this, from my experience with him, and you've heard his stories tonight, any program, high school, college, or other, football would be lucky to have Keita Malloy. And I wanted to tell you that in front of whoever's listening, because that's the respect I've always had for you. When we worked together at the high school, I was the only Black administrator. And so I can't tell you what it did for me that day when the school board announced that you were coming. I said, okay. I said, we've got to make some changes around here that no one can object to, because everybody loves winning. And in the course of winning, we're going to develop some young men. And so I knew it was going to be fantastic. Now, Coach, I know you also have a podcast.
I do.
Tell us briefly about that, because I want people to be able to benefit from your wisdom as often as they can.
I do a podcast. It's called the 3S Podcast. It's called, we talk everything sports, cigars, and soul food. And I know cigars spelled with a C. Everybody keeps telling me. It was just a little twist on words, right? 3S Podcast. And really how it came about, one of my good friends, Ronnie Organ, one of my teammates in college, he said, man, you always ahead of the game. Like things you say, you said 10 years ago, now all of a sudden, right, you should do a podcast. I'm like, oh, I don't know about it. Everybody's got a talk show, Get Up, and, Stephen A., right? We got all these. I said, I don't want to do that. So I said, like Keita Malloy, I'm going to put a twist on it, right? So I didn't want to talk sports for an hour or 2 hours, right? So I said I'd do a 20, 30-minute segment about sports topics, and then I would do a soul food segment. And the soul food segment really came about, again, because I wanted to help African-American communities and business owners to get some knowledge and some about these places. So I do a featured soul food spot, maybe bring on a guest from a soul food restaurant, guests in sports, right? And I'm a cigar smoker. I like cigars, and I know that's something big. So I do some cigar information on there as well, sports, cigars, and soul food. But I also do something on there that kind of a segment that's really close to my heart, is that I give flowers. We have a flower segment. And because I had some tragedy and loss in my own life, lost my dad and lost my three line brothers, all in the club, right? I wanted to give flowers to people while they're here. I think
Amen.
way too often we wait till people are gone and we talk about we wish we could have said and how much you could have told them you love them. So we do a segment in that show where I give flowers to various people that are still here and let them know how much I appreciate them, how much I appreciate what they do, whether I know them or not, how much I love them, how much I appreciate what they do. And we also do a rest in peace segment. Hopefully I don't have to do it every show, obviously, where, again, I want to acknowledge those who have passed and acknowledge those who are going through things. So we all go through tragedy. So again, those are just some of the twists on the show. And that's, like I said, that's the 3S podcast. Instagram is at 3SPOD, at Keata, Keahta. And I do it on Facebook Live as well. So that's how that came about.
Well, you know what, ladies and gentlemen, you have listened for a short time, and I might have him back again because we can get into some real stories about conversations that we had, man to man, administrator to coach, during our time together at a particular school. But I just wanted to introduce you, those of you that didn't know him, many of you did, especially in the DMV area and throughout the nation know him, but those of you that don't know him, I want to introduce you to a man who has spent his career looking after our young people, especially in many cases, our young Black males. And the thing about him is he cares about all of his players. But I can speak personally to the influence he has over young Black males. I'm just grateful for his presence in all of our lives. And I'm just grateful that I had a chance to work with him for the short time that I did. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Talk to Me with Eugene Williams Jr. We've been featuring the great Coach Keita Malloy. Be blessed.